Many years ago, not that many years, two civilizations arose in Abyssinia. We will explore the progression of both Da'amat and Aksum. Due to inhospitable environment in Arabia, many peoples migrated south, past the Rift Valley and into the fertile Abyssinia, including the original Afro-Asiatics, who possibly from 15,000 BC spread from the Levant, and after 1000 BC, Yemeni and fellow Semitic peoples migrated over to help establish Da'amat. From 980 BC, the kingdom of Da'amat reigned, rising from both Arabian and Eritrean culture, knowledge, and manpower. The royal dynasty had its capital at Yeha, creating maybe the oldest architecture in Ethiopia. Its staple harvest was millet, and it was a well-developed iron-using civilization. Its connections with the Nile Valley, Arabia, and Indigo Ocean helped its exporting of inland stimulants, animal resources, oilseeds, precious metals, and slaves. It likely got these slaves from battles against fellow continentals. And Da'amat also attracted many people to its cities like Matara and Kohaito. Although sources are pretty patchy, it seems that Semitic gods were more popular during Da'amat, like Astar, of Venus, rainstorms and avenging, Al-Maka, of sun and irrigation, Aubas, consort to Astar, and others. In the 600s BC, the kingdom's power was entrenched and was able to hold hegemony beyond its land border, especially in the west, and the Asmara Plateau was another metropolis, and they domesticated cows and goats. But during the 4th century, along with the rest of the world, there was turmoil, and the country fell into multiple feuding city-states. Archaeology reveals that near 400 BC, many towns were abandoned, and it's likely they went near Yeha, and it seems there was a dynasty change, with previous bull figurines of Astar disappearing, and the new use of copper. The turmoil also coincided with the people changing their agriculture and shelter. The kingdom likely had class tension before roughly 360-ish. It was also a Darwinist scene, where creativity was vital. One of the successor states was in Ona Nagast, and eventually became Aksum. This period saw most Semitic aspects replaced with Cushitic ones, but the best-known exception is language. Ona Nagast inherited a stone habitat that later became a palace before Aksumite unification, and their rivals could certainly build primitive rock forts and walls, at least by the 200 BC. Speaking of which, their closest rival was Ona and the Aboy Zuge. Bronze was also available in this century, and Egyptian and Nubian trade was prolific. In the 2nd century BC, it seems at least Ona and the Aboy Zuge had enough wealth to dig shaft tombs with metals, pots, glass, even gold. Although Ona Nagast was seemingly in average state based on tool making, after 170, it would begin something. It would begin to reunify the many kingdoms. Before 150 AD, we know that civil strife was still a current all around Nagast. Through many undescribed wars, battles, and negotiations, the kingdom moved its capital to Aksum and reunified the plateau. And one of the last enemies they had to unify were the so-called troglodytes in the city Adulis. So in the 1st century, Aksum had reunified the area, and by 150 would kill off the old dynasties. They also carried the much-evolved Da'amati script to be the Ge'ez language of the whole country. Another tradition was from the Civil War. It was the famous obelisk. Originally a meter tall, later ones would be 110 feet high. Of this terracing kingdom, its first king was reported as Zoskalis, who ruled between 75 and 100. and would be vital for Aksum. Yet still, Axum kept previous kings as governors, and the Nubians were also a threat. But the autonomy of those kings ended in the 2nd century, and between 183 and 213, King Gadara and his son were powerful enough to lead a group of kingdoms against the state of Sheba, of biblical fame. It was a draw, but coins began to be minted, and in the late 200s, Axum annexed land to the east. At the same time, under King Azba, Axum laid claim again to Sheba. This conflicted with Himyar's claim, and they warred until the early 300s. Either way, by 270, they began amazing architecture and were called one of 4 great empires of the world. Here, imported stuffs could be bought even by rural men, and King Azana cleverly made an alliance with Christian Emperor Constantine via baptism. Azana, a king who also ended the Nubian threat, was baptized into the Coptic tradition in 330. He ended all pagan traditions, including the crescent and disc symbol. By Azana's death, UNESCO reports compact and crowded communities, where dwellings stood close together and clustered around large buildings. By 400, Axum had spread to Djibouti and into Sudan, and in the mid-400s, refugees from Chalcedon and native monks evangelized throughout Aksum and built churches. By the reign of Caleb, Axum had consolidated its continental position, and speaking of whom, Caleb would invade Himyar yet again. With a little Roman help, in 525, Caleb defeated its crazy massacring Jewish king, saving Himyar's Christian minority. He left a 10,000-man garrison in victory. However, after Caleb's death in 534, Axum would slowly decline. Fortunately, the Christian institution would be beneficial for Abyssinia's history, and most likely continued Axum's intellectualism. Still, the Sassanid Persians took Yemen and overpowered the Aksumite navy in 572. Axum lost its control of trade, and with the 25 years of the Rashiduns, Axum was cut off from the Trinitarian Europe. Around the year 700, rains from the South Atlantic stopped migrating to here, preventing people from doing their double cropping. The kingdom migrated to the Cushitic grasslands, and in the 10th century, Axum was no more.